The financial flexibility links back into the scenario analysis. So, you know, if you go in with a forecast and you're taking cash to the absolute wire, they're not going to really be confident in that. You're going to have to give yourself a bit of headroom and some room for manoeuvre. And again, it goes back to then the compliance thing that we touched on. Is the financial practices of management actually sensible? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what your responsibilities are? Are you spending thousands of pounds on client entertainment and not getting any sales in every month? They will ask questions around that as well. Any questions there? We will run through a couple of phrases that come up, because I'm aware I think I've used some of them already. So anyone that isn't aware, if anyone asks what your burn rate is, it's basically how much net cash are you spending every month. So if I give you £500,000, how quickly are you really going to spend that? Your runway takes that burn rate and then gives it a time frame. So I give you £500,000 and you've got a burn rate of £50,000 a month, your runway is 10 months. They'll likely throw that at you, so it's good to know the terminology. Your CAC is your, I'll write this down so I'll get the wrong way around, customer acquisition cost.
Sorry, come again, burn rate of £50,000 a month.
Yeah, you might be, I was just sort of using made up figures for to illustrate it. Some businesses do. So your customer acquisition costs. This is basically how much money you have to spend to go out and actually bring a customer in. We will talk again about this in pricing, but it's very important to understand this. Because if it costs you £10 to get a customer in, you're going to get £2 sales of them, your business model's just failed immediately. LTV is your loan to value ratio. We don't usually see it a lot brought up in startups, but it might be brought up. It's basically the investment amount over the company value, and basically gives the investor a bit of percentage of what is the actual inherent value of it getting from you. You will have a discussion with them around how much they're going to invest and how much of the business they're going to get. While you might have an accountant or a professional do a market valuation of your business, it's probably not going to be that amount that you're going to get per share from your investor. There's obviously, you know, the whole bargaining aspect of it. It's going to be a negotiation, and also, you know, 1% of a business is inherently less valuable than 50%. You're going to have way more rights if you own 50% of the business and control than 1%. So it's not right to just give a direct proportion in the market value there. MVP, so I think you might have heard of this before, as your minimal viable product. So you see it a lot, but if you're basically thinking of designing an app, have you got it at beta stage? Can you get it out there? There is different opinions of it, but in my experience, I've always seen people's opinion is, if it's ready to get out to market, get it out as soon as possible. You're making money, it's out there, it's doing no good sitting in, and you're getting feedback. You're getting feedback of how to make it better. So that's a minimum viable product there. And MRR is your monthly recurring revenue. Investors really like this if you can show it. And this is basically like if you've got an app that might have a subscription model. And again, we will talk about it later. But if you can give them the confidence that there's going to be some set, sort of steady income coming in. What they don't really like is one-off sales that can be very up and down. Because if you hit a bad patch, then it gives them a lot less confidence in their investment. So yeah, they do like monthly recurring revenue.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
CAC can also be CPA, right? Is it the same? Cost per acquisition?
Yeah. Right, so we're going to go into forecasts. So the best way to forecast is a three-way forecast. So that links your profit and loss to your balance sheet, to your cash flow. So for anyone that's not really aware of what they are, your profit and loss is your performance over time. So it's your revenue, your expenses, your profits. Your balance sheet is a snapshot in time of your business. So it's anything like your assets, your liabilities, so money in the bank, any stock you might hold, who owes you money, who do you owe money to, and then they link up into your cash flow. So I think a common pitfall that people sort of new to this sort of thing do is get a brilliant P&L forecast. 100 grand's worth of revenue first year, absolutely fantastic. It looks brilliant on paper, but that's all fine and well, but what happens if your customers aren't paying you? That means absolutely nothing to your business, and you're not really going to last very long.
We hear that. I've made all this profit, why have I not got any cash?
Yeah, so that's where the balance sheet links in. It's all about timing. So how quickly are people paying you? How quickly are you paying people going out? And that's your net effect on your cash flow. And again, as a startup, cash is king. This is where the focus is. So it's vitally important that you have these considerations when you're doing your forecasting. So where do you start then with your three-way, for want of a better phrase? Find out what your market is. So how big is your market? And how much of that do you want of it? How much of it can you realistically get? It's pointless sort of going out there and trying to forecast revenue and you go over what your market might be. So I don't know if you're an app. Pointless trying to say you're going to have 12 billion users or something like that. It's just not actually viable. So find out what your market is. See if you've gap in the market and is there a market in the gap. Once you've done that, you need to then look at your pricing. So I can do an example on the board for this. We'll do an app. Does anyone want to give us an example of an app?
Spotify. It's not a good one.
Yeah, we can do. We'll try Spotify. So let's say Spotify. I mean, they're fairly straightforward with the services that you can get. But let's say they had 3 different services. So you had service A, just music. Service B, music videos. And the 2 services we could buy. You might have a number of different sort of revenue streams within your app. But this is a common thing that we see is overlooked at the start, and this is really going to drive your sales figures and make sense, and this is what investors will ask about. So let's just take the 2 streams for simplest. The actual mix we can get is 3. So we can get music on their own, we can get videos on their own, or we might just sign up to both. What you then need to understand is, or get a feel for, what percentage of your total customer base is going to be allocated on this. So, you know, you might have 50 with the music, 30 just for the videos, 20% having both. What you've then done, when you've seen what your market is say, just for argument's sake, we're going to have 100 users. And you're going to have what your price is. Let's make up some figures there.
That's the revenue, right?
€5. You'll have to forgive my mental arithmetic. But can you see how we've now got a monthly revenue figure with some actual backing behind it? What you don't want to be in a position is if you say I'm going to get this in month 1 and investor turn around and go, where from? And you're just like, people are going to buy stuff and it might be this or that. This is also step 1, understand your market, understand your prices and who's going to be buying what. It's this figure that we can then play with for your growth. So like we said, it's smart to go off your users because you don't want to accidentally go off your total and realise that with your pricing structure, you've actually forecast more people than are currently existing, or something like that, to be flipping. Once you've got your sales, we can then build down from that. So after that, we've got our costs, our expenses. There's 2 sort of splits in that in your financial sales, your P&L. You've got your variable and your fixed. A lot of people might call variable your direct costs. This is something that you have to go out and literally make that purchase to be able to make the sale. That's probably a high level way to do it. And what that's going to give you is sales minus your direct costs, or cost of sales it's sometimes called. That's your gross profit. Your fixed costs are basically any cost that's going to incur, even if you haven't made a sale. So your rent, your staff, your light, your utilities. It's important to get this split, because understanding your variable costs is how you scale. So if you have to go out and,
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
I
it's
feel,
fine.
like, I feel like this has gone back to front here, because for me to come up with a figure to sell,
Yeah. So
I need to account for the costs on an annual basis. So how can you come up with the sell price if you haven't analysed your costs?
So yeah, good question. So
because
that's,
you need to put markup on top of the cost to get to that sell figure, don't
so
you?
you're basically cost plus then. So that's where understanding your margins comes into the
Well,
variable.
you're not going to lose then, are you? If you come up with your sell figure and then afterwards figure out your cost, you're not accounting for what you're selling.
If you're accounting for your fixed costs as well, so this is where I've talked about scaling. If you've got your gross profit, so you've got your cost on what you're selling, you do your cost plus, so you're going to say, I'm going to make 30% margin on that. This is now my sales price. If you're not then forecasting enough units though, to cover your fixed costs, you're never going to be making money. So it's getting your house in order, you're right, yeah, so if you cost plus, you would work backwards. You've got your gross profit, it's then understanding that fixed cost you need to cover to first break even and then scale. Still got one there. So you are right, so 2 ways to do it for your variable. You either understand what your costs are for every user we have. So I don't really know how Spotify works, but I say for every user that signs up, I have to pay Virgin Money a quid or something like that. You work backwards.